I'm Stefan Baumann. I would like to invite you on a special journey to discover the splendor, encounter the grandeur, feel the excitement. Come along with me as we experience the thrill of painting outdoors. A 3-day journey that will change your art forever. In one of America's most stunning locations, Mount Shasta. Everything you need to know is on our website, www.stefanbaumann.com. How was your first day today?
I can't tell you how my first day was. It just was great. I have to change my whole way of thinking, but it's okay because I understand now why my paintings are just so mediocre. It's something I've been stuck on this rung for too long, and it's like, So that's why I called Stefan. I'm just so excited. I can hardly stand it. I don't know. Jan is right. I probably won't sleep for a month. So we go home and watch every single one of your videos.
Yeah, there's stuff on the videos that you don't learn either. So you learn it in the classroom or in my coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, what amazes me about education is that it's like the information's out there if you're willing to actually pursue it. And you have to find people that know how to teach. And there are a lot of people who, well, I wouldn't say they don't know how to teach because I don't want to, but the thing is, their process of teaching has been just to rehash things that they've been taught. You know, one of my big pet peeves, you can sit down now, thank you. One of my pet peeves. Huh?
I don't want to steal the limelight.
No, you can't. Kat, this is my show. This is the Baumann show. This is me. But anyway, but there are people that will dictate stuff and say stuff. There are teachers that will say stuff. And they pass it on. And they have never really tested anything. You know, there's something to say about painting for 40 years. I was painting 30 years, like all the other instructors, thinking. And when you think about when I first started off, I was 14 teaching. And the people I was teaching with when I was 14, they were 3 times my age. And when I'd have an insight, I'd have students go, I'll be damned if a 14-year-old will tell me what to do. But they were kind of right, because a lot of the stuff that I was teaching back then and what students were paying me for teaching, I might have been better than them, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And when I have my students now that say, you know, I've been asked to teach, I go, yes, go ahead and teach, because they know more about painting than I did when I first started. And you have to kind of get that. At the period of time when I was starting teaching, there was no internet. And I was up in Lake Tahoe. I had never really been to any serious galleries. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I fell in love with Albert Bierstadt. And I looked at his work and I knew that what I was being taught with, because my first teacher, Ron Villa, he was a good teacher. He taught kind of an elevated Bob Ross kind of thing. Okay, so it was Bob Ross in a more cultural, nicer manner. I know, I do too.
He got me started.
It gets lots of people started. I love him. My job security is based on Bob Ross. So I love Bob Ross. And so I get all people that come in. I can't tell you how many people that sign up for phone coaching, primarily because they're tired of doing the Bob Ross stuff. And then when I start them coaching, and we'll have our first talk, which is usually an eye-opener, like you felt today. Did you feel like a shift? You know, when I have things in my workshop and I go, you know, come to my workshop for a 3-day workshop that will change the way you paint forever, I can say, come in for an hour like you did, and I changed your world in an hour.
What you did, you flipped it.
Yeah, just, you've been taking lessons all your life, and all of a sudden you go, whoa, that's different. Yeah, and it lands differently. You like all of a sudden you leave here looking at things completely different. That's the beauty about having the conversation of light, knowing what that is. But I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, for 30 years I was teaching, and people go, why are you doing that? And I go, I don't know, I'm just doing it. You know, it's just, a lot of the stuff was ramblings of me when I was doing the classes from Ram Villa. And I remember Ram Villa, when I first went to him, I was 14. Well, it all started when I first started painting on location when I was 12. So when I was in Hawaii, I was a horrible student, no talent whatsoever, not even an idea. And remember, I wanted to be a bowler. And then I fell in love with painting on that trip. And at that point, I'd been already taking lessons, but I would wait around, and some of you know these students. I have 1 or 2 of them in my classes. And they'll like wait around for me to come around and paint their painting for them. And when I'm not there, they're make a mess, and then I come back and fix their mess, and then I leave again, and then they come back and fix. So they get a miniature Baumann that they can go, look what I painted. But the thing is, that's the way I started. My father sat in one of my paint classes thinking I was a genius, and I couldn't wait for him to leave so that the teacher could clean up the mess that I was making. So, you know, I come from that kind of background, but the thing is, teachers don't know everything that they have from experience. And I went 30 years not knowing this stuff till I learned a couple of things. And then all of a sudden, just like you, I had a revelation. It's like, wow. And it's all based around that temperature thing. And all of a sudden when I started doing that, I started like putting together a whole new way of teaching and looking at things and value and color and all that. It really changed the way that I would paint. But I took a long time working with my students to really hone down these philosophies that I have that really change your world. And I can deliver them in a package. But when I hear teachers go, well, you gotta wait 6 months for your painting to dry before you varnish them. I'm going, really? Because why do you say that? And a lot of my students who have taken lessons from lots of people, they go, well, I gotta wait 6 months for this to dry so I can varnish it. And I go, who told you that? And they go, well, my teacher. Which one? Well, all of my teachers have said that. And I go, did you ever ask them where did they get that information?
From another teacher.
From another teacher. Where did that teacher get it? Because that's what the instructions are in the can. If you read Dimmer Varnish on the can, it says this product is lethal and will kill you. And then when you get underneath that, it says wait 6 months for your painting to dry before applying. And apply thin coats. Why do you want thin coats? Well, the company knows that if you put thin coats, if it starts to mess up, you'll stop, right?
Oh.
Okay, so these are all like precautionary things. So what you're buying is dimmer varnish basically in a can, and that dimmer varnish basically is cut. It's a sap that's cut with triple rectified turpentine. So turpentine is the medium that we use. And dimmer varnish is also a medium that a lot of artists, if you go into Meyer's book of artistic materials and you look at all of the different mediums that you can make, almost all of the mediums have dimmer varnish in them. So by adding dimmer varnish to your paints, that doesn't affect them very much. So why do they put that on the can? Well, the reason why is because they don't know if you're going to be painting thin or if you're going to be painting thick. They don't know if you're using cadmium red, which takes forever to dry, or using burnt umber that practically dries overnight. And in a spray form, all you need is to have the paint stay there. It doesn't even have to be dry, but if it gets a little coating on there and you spray it and it doesn't melt away, then spray away, varnish. And don't varnish little bits of it. Varnish it like you're going to run out of the material while you're spraying it. Spray it, spray it, spray it, spray it, spray it, till it becomes so thick at one sitting that it levels itself out. So you don't get the can, little swashes that you get. People say, oh, I hate varnishing paintings because I ruin my paintings. And I go, why? And they say, well, some areas are varnished and some areas are not, and I can never get it even. And that's because you're not spraying it enough. You got to put that on thick. Now, you know how to put varnish on a canvas.
Yeah.
See, the problem with brushing it on is that's usually what pop the...
And it leaves bristles behind. So
It does leave bristles.
I've been starting to spray.
Yeah, that's the issue, is the bristle brushes. And then, when you spray it, you want to overspray it and then spray it and spray it. Now, I love the candied finishes that you get on your canvases, by the way.
Candy?
You like candied apple.
Yeah, they're pretty,
It's like,
pretty shiny.
oh, but they're beautiful that way.
Now, you prefer the shiny to the matte?
I do.
Oh, you go to the museums, those are all shiny paintings.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want to match. And it's like, are you kidding?
I used to do a mix of both, but
Just put varnish on the thing. I mean, when you buy a car, you go, oh, that car is too shiny. Or when you have furniture, you go, oh, that's just too shiny. I like those. It's like, no, people like shiny stuff. It makes them feel like they're buying something new and fresh. You should always lay your painting down. You're not putting enough varnish on your painting.
no, I do it 3 or 4 times.
Stop
When I
it.
lay it down, you're holding your can at an angle and it can drip.
Okay.
And it drips onto the paint and then you've got a blob there.
Yeah, but I varnished some huge paintings. You just have to be aware. Okay. So first thing what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a big background. So you put your painting in there so that your newspaper. So if you're doing a large canvas, which I do, because most of my paintings are like 24 by 36. So you put the paper all the way around. You got to wait for a nice clear day. Now, you wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on if it's dry to the touch. Now, most of my paintings are painted relatively thin, and most of my colors dry relatively quickly. So once you have your painting down, I don't know why we're talking about varnish on this. We were talking about something else. But the thing is, it's like, well, let's answer a question, right? So, so when you put your painting down, you want to overspray. And then if you're doing a large painting, you don't want to put the can over this. You want to put the can over your painting and spray back and forth like this. And usually I spray in an area that's in the middle of my studio or outside that I can walk around. So I walk around and spray it from this angle, spray it on this angle, spray it on this angle, keeping the can from being over that. But the thing is, I never really have a lot of drip that is a problem. Because I just kind of let it go and I keep spraying, 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 spraying. And I spray that thing like a half a can. I dump that thing so that it is like just, blah. So if there's any dull spots from browns or anything like that, it gets saturated. And then while it's still wet, I look at an angle. If I see an area that's kind of getting a little matty, I go back in and I put more on there. And the thing is, you want to spray that thing in the first 2 minutes. Because dimmer varnish dries fairly quickly. And if you don't get all of the track marks and all of that stuff, you will get a blotchy effect. But you get more of a blotchy effect if you put thin little layers on there. Spray that thing and empty out the can. And that just...
What distance?
Usually about 2 feet. Because I want to get the product on there. Well, if you get closer, you can get drips.
Yeah.
So you want to be kind of, 2 feet away. And you kind of go over it, and then you go another direction, you go over it, and I mean, I will dump a half a can on that one setting. And if the paint's underneath, it should be dry enough to the touch. If you're using a spray can, you're not going to mess anything up. And it dries so quickly, it doesn't really give you a chance because of the triple rectified turpentine that's inside of it. It doesn't really sit there long enough to really start dissolving your paints.
Do you wear a mask, right?
No.
You don't?
No, why do you think I'm always in a good mood? I'm always hot.
I would wear a mask if you have any trouble breathing.
Yeah, if you have, it's a good, but the thing is, you can hold your breath and then run inside.
But you're a young man.
I'm not a young man.
Well,
I used to be.
You're in your 40s.
I used to breathe a lot more of that triple. No, I'm 57. I'm an old guy, and I've been doing it for years. And people are so fearful of that stuff.
Did you hear what she said?
Huh?
Did you know what she said?
What?
She says you're in your early 40s.
I know, she's just trying to...
Well, I was doing the math earlier, but no, I don't know how old you were. Can't tell.
I'll take that. What the hell? I'm vain enough. So anyway...
PD is not a good thing, though.
No, but you won't get it from oil. You know, the thing is, these old artists used to paint, and I get this all the time from people, oh, you're going to die from it. It's like, yeah, and then I get letters from people saying, oh, she died of cancer. And I go, I can't tell you how many people died of cancer who've never been around paints.
Yeah.
And chances are, if your mother had cancer, you're going to be prone for cancer. And so, yes, it's not a thing that you want. You don't go down and take cancer pills, you know, and you can take some precaution. But these old artists, they live longer than anyone else. Shishkin and Monet and these...
And he smoked. Monet was a smoker.
They were all smokers and drinkers. You know, and what did Manet die of? He died of syphilis. I mean, sex is worse for you then. Don't have sex.
Delete that off the YouTube.
No, they need to know.
Whitberg still uses lead-based stuff.
There he goes. And he doesn't have syphilis either. So painting doesn't cause syphilis either. But some people would say, if you say for the few people that died, there's a large population of painters out there that have family history of lung cancer and brain cancer and all that stuff. And yes, probably using some of these chemicals are bad, but so is driving your car. You know, the chemicals that you get from your water. You know, so the oil paint is, unless you are squeezing it in your mouth, and even Van Gogh showed that you could eat paint and still live. My dog ate Prussian blue, which has arsenic in it. And for weeks we had little blue piles all over the yard. And he actually developed a blue spot on his tongue that never went away. But he didn't die of anything that was caused from that. He died because a car hit him.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
the car story.
So, I mean, you could die of all kinds of things. All I know is that I want to die being an oil painter. That's the way I want to die. So anyway, getting back to taking classes, you could, if you have a good teacher that teaches you, you're going to get the insight. Now, if you take classes all your life,
Yeah.
and you don't have really teachers that have really their own philosophy and understand how to get there, then you could spend your whole life never really knowing the secrets that you learned today.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
It was like Capello. And I listen to stuff and I read stuff and it was like,
Yeah. Some of the stuff that I actually have are refound secrets. They're not my secrets. They're actually secrets that have been, you know,
buried and then come
buried, and they're slowly coming back. It's kind of the 100th monkey kind of thing. And some of the stuff that I teach on YouTube is some of that. But some of it is I keep for my classes and my students.
That's my homework to watch your videos.
So go watch my videos and get caught up.
Okay.
One of my students, he signed up with me. He was like 17. He was still going to high school. And I didn't know how old he was. He started off with me, he was 17, and I didn't know, he's got a really mature voice. And so when I started, and I was telling him the fees and stuff, I said, you can't afford this, can you? He goes, no, I'm still in high school. And I was like, oh. And so I said, I could give you these classes because I admire you for being so young. But then you won't appreciate it. So I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we try to make your classes affordable by you not paying for them? And he goes, how do I do that? And I said, well, every painting that we paint, if you sell reasonably, will cover your fees. So you have $150 a month. You do 4 paintings a month, selling them for $75 a piece. You'll have a little extra money at the end for canvases and brushes too.
Good idea.
And he's still with me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nice.
Now he's got a real job. And he said, Stefan, he says, I've worked you into my budget. He says, he's just now moving out. I mean, it's really awesome to be able to influence somebody that young.
Teaching them to fish.
Is his job painting?
No, he can't make a living painting when you're that young. But he did cover his classes, and now he's at a point. And then, a couple of lean months, he would kind of get his brother to buy a painting, or, like relatives to support him, But he's really serious, and he's very talented. He will become a good painter. He will be a professional painter, but Meanwhile, you have life. And that's the problem with most people who want to paint. And a lot of people who do my coaching, and some of you in here would like to become professional painters. But there's a time for that. And I tell you, it's awesome that the people that I listen to that decide that they want to be professional painters. It's an awesome thing too, but it's a journey that you have to kind of work on. The coaching helps with that. It's harder to do that in this group, but independently, they're all working on their Instagram accounts, their Facebook accounts, their web. They all get websites. They're all just really working at getting their foundation in. It's really great.
Mars Dorflinger has really grown.
Yeah, Mars is one of my success stories.
Amazing.
But Mars
Dorflinger.
Let's just say, I always think of it like Mrs. Doubtfire. Dorflinger.
Marcy.
But yeah, so Marcy, she contacted me 2.5 years ago, and she said she's going to retire in 2 years, and she wants to be an artist. And she'd never really painted before. She had some artistic stuff, but this whole painting thing was never going to be part of her thing into her life. So all of a sudden she saw retirement coming, and she's like, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" Because that's basically what it is, right? We spend our whole life, and I always start students when they start with me, either when they're, young like Abraham, or elderly people who are in their 70s, and I go, "So what do you want to be when you grow up?" And they'll come back and they'll go, "Well, I'd like to be financially sound with a portfolio, and I go, "Oh, come on, quit being responsible. This is a question that somebody asked you when you were 4. That's not what you want to be. When you're little and somebody says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" You go, "I want to be a doctor," or "I want to be an artist."
My son was a pilot.
Yeah, or be a pilot.
He's 4 years old.
Because that's exciting. Yeah, and he's a pilot now.
He's a pilot.
That's my
and-
One of the best.
Wow, my son too, Molly.
I mean, the thing is, if you ask a kid, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" and they're doing that, they're probably the happiest people in the world. If they wanted to be a nurse, and they are nurses, they've done their life plan. The problem is that when little kids say they want to be an artist, they immediately get a crumpled nose and going, "No, be realistic. You got to do something a little more practical than being an artist." My mom would go to me and she'd go, "What, you want to go sell your stuff at Fisherman's Wharf?" And I'd go, "Yeah."
My dad told me,
That was
put your drawing away and do your math.
Yeah, put your drawing away, be serious. But we're talking about little tiny kids. So that's always been, squashed. So when I ask students, I say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" They're like taken back a bit. And I go, "No, what do you want to be?" And they usually, if they're calling me, they want to be an artist. And I go, "Good. So now be one. It's about time. You're 65 years old. Let's be it." And Mars all of a sudden decided she's 65, retiring. "I'm going to be an artist." I think she retired a little bit early, but still. And she was working in different kinds of fields and stuff. And so she called me up and she said, "I want to take your workshop. I'm going to take 3 workshops. And after that, I declare myself as an artist. I know everything about painting then. And that will give me 2 years of practice. And then when I can retire and be a pro." So she was going to come into my spring workshop, and she called me somewhere around January. At the beginning. And I said, "Before you come to my workshop in May, it might be good for you to have a few little coaching classes before we start." So she said, "Okay." So she did coaching, and then she came to my workshop, and then she went to 2 other workshops.
We were at that workshop when she came.
Yeah, she was just starting.
Yeah.
Okay. Look what she's done in 2 years.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So,
her style is different. It's
oh,
different.
her style is always changing.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing about her. She is just always, she is absolutely, and the thing is, it's all genuine.
She takes this little tiny plein air box out of there when she does
Is she
biking in the hills.
It's not even a plein air. You know what it is?
It's a CD.
It's a CD case.
She's the one that posted that. I saw that online. I go, brilliant.
Yeah, she did. She made a plein air box out of a CD case. Yeah. And the thing is, Plein Air magazine newsletter did an article on her based on that. you know. But all this stuff I hear of way before it's all published, because I'm there at the beginning stages of it. She did the other 2 workshops. She chose me to continue on her coaching. And she's done all kinds of things. She, you know, in the process of doing her business stuff with me and doing her Instagram and stuff, she got involved with doing plein air painting events for weddings. So when you're in my coaching class, it's yes, 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 yes. And so somebody said, hey, and I didn't know that this was a thing. It is a thing where people go and do plein air painting in weddings. You know, if you're trying to outdo the Smiths, and the Smiths have really the best photographer, but if the Smiths have the very best photographer and the very best thing, you know, this one family was having a wedding in a castle in Ireland. So if they're going there, they're, you know, Microsoft people, and they said, we want you to do the plein air, you know, painting of the event. They flew her over there. I was jealous as hell. It's like, well, what about me?
You should have said, I'm the coach, I need to go.
I told her that. I said, you need somebody to like hold your paintbrushes for you. So they paid for her trip and all that. She got to spend an extra week in Ireland. She painted the event, came back. And I got a huge education. This is why it's great when I have so many students. But I didn't know that that was a thing. And if you put in plein air weddings, there's a lot of people who do that. So she was pursuing that route too. Anything to try to figure out how she was going to retire being an artist.
So what did she paint?
She painted the interiors of this castle with people in them. And we came up with some brilliant stuff. I mean, you know, because when you're involved with that whole thing, you know, you see a lot of things that go on. And one of her pictures that she was painting was literally the party going on and the the bride, literally sitting in the background, just exhausted, just like, leave me alone for a minute, with her shoes off and stuff. And another one was the bridesmaids gossiping about things. And so she did some of these avant-garde behind the scenes kind of thing. And I was like, God, you know, let's do some really serious paintings, like the European paintings of that kind of thing. And then she'll go off, and then all of a sudden, she did some stuff with FASO, which is the website that I have all my artists working with, and they put stuff out there. And then she started participating in the bold brush contest. And so with the bold brush contest, she started experimenting. She enters all the time, and all my students that I work with enter into all these competitions and all these things that they work on. And slowly, she started getting in the top 15%. And a lot of my students get in that. So whoever judges the FASO bold brush contest loves Baumann students. They don't know me, but they love what we do in a painting. And so she kind of won. But the great thing about Mars is that she's always inspired. I mean, I have no idea what direction that she goes into, but every week it's always like, okay, she's coming up. I'm looking at the time schedule, and when she calls me, I'm like going, okay, I'm ready. Because she's always like, what's going to happen this week? She just retired in October, and she told me, you know, at the beginning of summer last year, she says, you know, October is coming, and I go, yeah. You know, and she says, you know what happens in October? I say, yeah, you retire. And she says, I'm going out into the world in October. And I go, yeah. I said, are you ready for it? She goes, I don't know. Right? And so meanwhile, she's entering these bold brush contests. And then, remember last summer we had all the fires. So she did a series of paintings that were inspired by the fires.
Yes.
And she's somewhat a little bit abstract. Not everybody who paints, you know, under me looks like they paint like me. They do their own thing. And so she did a series of fires. And she won the bold brush contest. Now, I tell students, why do you do the bold brush contest? Well, because it has some legs on it if you can win it. And so she won. And she won for like the best acrylic. It's not even oil painting that she does. And a lot of her paints are a combination of wax and oils and all kinds. She's always off doing some bizarre things. She's always out on the edge, but always rooted in Baumann philosophy.
A good foundation.
So there's a good foundation. So it all has that really good lighting, you know, composition, all the stuff that we try to do. So she went into there. Well, Collector Magazine, or Fine Art Collector Magazine, saw her work and decided to do an article on her. And she became good friends with the editor of that, And then now they're pursuing some galleries in Santa Fe. And this literally happened October.
This is fabulous.
The month of October, where she just said, I'm going to be a professional artist, that month, she won the contest, got the article, and got introduced to galleries. And she gets to pick and choose which gallery she wants to be in.
That's a big time.
You know how artists are like, oh, please take me. She gets to go, I don't like that one. She's fabulous. But the thing is, she's a marathon runner. She just moved to Phoenix, Arizona. She decided, oh, I need something that I can paint with that I could put in my back pocket. So she was trying to think of different new things, so she thought about these disposable CD cases. And so she puts her canvas in, and then she uses, for paint containers, she uses contact lens holders. And so she has all of her paints in these little contact, and each contact lens holder has 2 separate colors. So she literally has everything in a baggie. And she could put all that in the back of her bike, and she goes out with her things. And every week, she comes up with a different idea, a different thing, a different way, I mean, it is amazing how she's out there. But you know, you sit and you do this. You start actually, I mean, you guys know of her. I mean, you know, she's out there doing this stuff. You have to be doing it. And I'm her coach. But you can, in a couple of years, you can become an artist. And so she has, but she declared it and she made it happen. So it's never too late. And I heard you say that you know, it's too late to do all this. You have to kind of get going and working on it. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You have to make a decision to actually do that. So anyway, seize the moment. One of the important things about painting, which is lost in doing photography, is getting the sense of place. The sense of place is a place where the viewer feels like they're looking at the painting. Now, a lot of that has been lost in photography because we usually take a photograph up high. So the sense of place was really big in the early painting. So if you look at early Bierstadts and Morans or the early artists, is that part of their rules of composition was not only did they follow the golden mean on things, but they would construct a composition. Nowadays, it's by gosh, by golly, get a good photo and paint it religiously. And the problem with that is that most of the time when we take a photograph, we are shooting up here. And this is gone. Okay?
So that's what establishes the sense of place, Stefan, is kind of where
The viewer is part of it.
the viewer, your feet are planted in a
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, so if you look at old Bierstadt paintings and Morans, you know, the old Hudson River School artists and stuff, and prior to that, most of the stuff was done, you know, in the early days in the studio, where Constable and all these actually would put together these really incredible. So you want to get a sense of place. And that is actually the viewer is standing in the thing. You want to give that viewer a sense of place that's big enough and prominent in the painting enough. What's really hard, though, is when you have something that big, trying to get it into a small canvas. That's your problem, remember? So, no problem. So the problem is that actually the foreground is actually more important than the vista in the background. So what you want to do is you want to start off with the foreground first. The big problem is like if you paint the Grand Canyon, by the time you start painting the Grand Canyon, you run out of foreground. So start off with the foreground and then put the canyon in the distance. And had she started off with all the foreground, which is really what was beautiful in that painting, is the old tree and the moss and the rocks and stuff like that. The water going back there is incidental.
So
Yeah.
really, it's easy to fix though.
Yeah, we just bring this up and bring that down and you'll go right. But this is the feeling that you have if you don't quite have that established. The horizon line, that's one of my key points when you come to the workshop, one of my 12 things. It's like the horizon. It's like, that's important. People go, why is that important? Well, in a still life, it's not so much. It is, but not like in a landscape. And landscapes are so much harder than anything else that you can paint because you can get lost in all that.
No kidding.
Every time.
And if you put an animal in, but see, even like trees, are you looking up at a tree or looking down at a tree? So even how these branches and everything go in matter on the overall effect. So take a pointer from Sargent, because Sargent would go to a location first and look for a comfortable place to sit down that's free of ants and wildlife and things. You know, if it's crawling around on the ground, chances are you don't want to sit on it.
Right.
And ants are just, and once you get an ant on you, then you feel hundreds of them and they're not even there. So it's like, look like a crazy person.
Just take some poison.
What's really awesome about Manchester is that we don't have like mosquitoes and flies and stuff. I don't know why that is, but it's like you don't sit there like, you know.
Has the
It's the
altitude.
altitude.
No, but in Lake Tahoe, that's 6,000 feet. We had mosquitoes all over like crazy. The good thing about the few mosquitoes we have in Mount Shasta, they're really stupid. And I think it's because they don't have a lot of population. If you think about mosquitoes, like in San Francisco, you could never sneak up to a mosquito because with so many people swatting them, only the fast ones survive. It's evolution, right? So those mosquitoes you can't touch. But these other mosquitoes, you can pick them right out of the air. I mean, they're so dumb, you know? Because nobody kills them. They're just all stupid, just breeding stupid mosquitoes. Yeah. But they get swat a lot of mosquitoes, so you do have like an evolution in mosquitoes there. But anyway, my advice to all of you is to go 9 by 12 minimum, but go 16 by 20, 12 by 16. 12 by 16 is a good size canvas. Go to a bigger size. You know, it's interesting with the pricing. I have students that will go, oh my God, this little 8 by 10 takes me just as much time as a big canvas. And I go, yeah. And you have to really consider that. You know, if you're selling your work, you have to say at what point is the price break. And for me, I have to make enough money on a 12 by 16 canvas to justify the amount of time I put into a small painting. If you go out on location and you're going to produce a painting, you might want to think about going 12 by 16. That's like the most ideal size. Small enough that you can do it, but big enough that when you sell it, you can get a decent price for it. Anything smaller is almost like a miniature.
What is a decent price for a 12 by 16? 16 by 20.
$5,000 if you can get it
Oh, you mean to sell?
to sell.
One of your videos, you talked about price per square inch.
It's $2 per square inch, and I can tell you there are a lot of people that argue with that. But then I also argue with how much people pay for wine and other things. So I mean, you know, $2 of a square inch is pretty good. But it does bring the price up. But the things it brings it up so that people take you serious. If you're selling a painting for $100, nobody's going to take you serious.
Take it home.
Yeah, it's like
You know it's good. Take
but a 12 by 16 would have given you some size, and you put paint on, you need some elbow room. You're not going to be able to really work on brush strokes if you work on a small painting. It's too tight.
I have 12 by 16.
Yeah, and learn how to, yeah, if she's got them, use them. You should use them too.
I should.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I'm going to bring them up to
Yeah,
the
well,
shop.
I would do all 12 by 16. In fact, I should make a new drawing box to 12 by 16. Because I think that's going to be my new size that I'm going to have everybody work. Because 12 by 16 isn't,
But storage is an issue.
no, it's not. You're an artist.
When you're done, or paint over them again?
No. No, you don't, you just stack them up. They're boards.
box.
Put them in a cardboard box.
You paint them, what do you do with them?
You just
Mary, I love your gray.
stack them up.
They're great.
If they're good or not. I can tell you what, every artist that you see out there is an imposter. Richard Schmidt and David Lafelle and all these really great artists, they're all imposters. You think, wow, they're really so great. But they all have garage fulls of crap.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they're stacked up like you can't believe. You can't produce fine art unless you have a whole garage full of crap. In fact, I would say you can't even call yourself a professional until you have a whole garage full of crap. Otherwise, you haven't learned everything. And so you just put it onto your heap. But the good thing is, who was it that was just telling me that they sold 2 paintings, and it was Sharon. Yeah. See, you had 2 paintings in the show. The paintings that you had in the show that were accepted weren't your style and your good stuff. It was some of your, what is called drawer paintings.
It was, but you can say.
You can have an art show, and the paintings that sell are the ones you never thought would. Now, if your paintings are not going to sell, be the most expensive paintings that aren't selling. You know, if you're at a show where it's prestigious,
You can price it whatever you want.
you could price it whatever you want, but $2 a square inch, I wouldn't go less than that because you got expenses. You got me to pay for. You got coaching and teachers and painting and driving, and you have a lot of overhead. And if artists would just stick to $2 a square inch, and if you're getting a 12 by 16 and you're putting in, hours in there, you're going to put the same amount of hours in an 8 by 10 or a 9 by 12. Might as well do a 12 by 16. At least you'll be up at a price range where you get paid for that time. Because at an 8 by 10, you're not making enough money to cover your expenses. So you got to be kind of wise. So 12 by 16 would be the minimum, and I want to see you guys working in here 12 by 16. Same with you. And you'll get over your conversation about storage. If you'd like to try coaching for yourself, whether you're a beginner or an advanced painter, please don't hesitate to give me a call at 415-606-9074. Join us on our website at www.thegrandview.org and get more information about our show. There you can download our free book, Everything You Need to Know About Outdoor Painting.